Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mo, and thank you for Karuma for setting us up so well. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us for this two-part webinar series. We are giving you, we are sharing with you, and we want you to be very involved with this series. It's our insight on 7 years of work on MENAdrought. You'll have seen pictures of drought in the MENA region in Morocco or Jordan or Lebanon or wherever. And we know that this, because of climate change, this is an increasing challenge to the region. So we and our partners have been working the 3 pillars of drought management over the last 7 years. So this is looking at drought early warning systems, undertaking vulnerability and impact assessments, but also then that third pillar, that really important third pillar, which is all about drought mitigation, drought planning, and responsiveness. And every step of the way, our work has been embedding, operationalizing, co-developing these solutions with our partners. So our first partner I'd like to acknowledge is USAID, who have funded these 7 years of work. And it's that long-term commitment that has allowed us to get as far as we have. I'd also like to acknowledge some of our technical international partners. So this is the US National Drought Mitigation Center. Many of you will have seen them when they visited the region, the Doherty Water for Food Institute, and NASA Goddard Space Flight Center. They have brought new technologies, new developments that have been able to help us work. Our work has been embedded in the governments and government agencies and people from Morocco, Jordan, and Lebanon. And it really has been this co-development and their endless commitment and work and energy, which is where we've got to today. So this is a 2-part series. In this first webinar, we're going to be looking at drought early warning systems. This is the technology side of being able to work on this. And then on Wednesday, we will then focus on drought adaptation planning, drought management planning, what is needed in that. So what we're doing is we're exploring in these series with officials and applied researchers that our colleagues are going to be very much part of it, who have navigated this science to policy interface and helped us understand intergovernmental collaboration, but also obstacles. How can we overcome them? And then looking at where the greatest opportunities, how that comes about by working together. So the webinar series, there will be a roundtable discussions, there will be some technical presentations, there will be question and answer sessions where we really want you to ask your question. We will be able to pose these to those technical experts. And then there's going to be an interactive sessions where we try and look at those questions. So for today, as I said, the focus is on the drought early warning systems, seasonal forecast, impact measurement, monitoring. Imagine looking out your window and saying, is there a drought here or isn't there a drought here? Particularly in the Middle East, North Africa, where we have naturally arid conditions. So this webinar is going to showcase how we have developed with those key government agencies in Jordan, Lebanon, Morocco, that active and operational drought management systems, and looking at that. First of all, I'd like to set the scene by asking for, you can see this, sorry, you can see that the overview of our webinar today. But first of all, I'd like to start the scene by playing a video that gives you an insight on where we've started with this work and what is driving this 7 years of very hard work. So over to you, Karen. Thank you, Karen. And it really is a pleasure, whilst we're watching that, to see so many of our partners and friends who have been part of this development, signing in and introducing themselves. And please know that everybody else is welcome. And we really want to hear from you. We're excited to share what we've done, but it's a shared experience. And some of them are major challenges, as you will have known about, as you have worked with us on that, some of those, starting in those early days at ICBA, the International Centre for Biosaline Agriculture, and through these continued areas like that. As Mo introduced us, we are the International Water Management Institute, and we were the implementing partner, and I had the great honour of being the chief of party for this. But I'd first of all like to introduce Dr. Yusuf Bruzin, who is going to give an opening welcome from IWMI, and he is the MENA representative for based in Cairo for IWMI. So over to you for the video, Karen.
Hi, I am Dr. Yusuf Bruzin, the representative of IWMI, International Water Management Institute in the MENA region, based in Cairo, Egypt. I am very glad to welcome you today to this webinar on drought monitoring and early warning systems. This webinar happens in very interesting times from climate perspective. We are currently evolving under unprecedented drought and heat waves that are hitting many parts of the globe, with scorching temperatures, absent rainfall, and water shortage. We are even breaking records in terms of maximum temperatures and heat wave durations, for example, with devastating impacts on lives, livelihoods, and economies. Most of the projections say that, unfortunately, this is the new normal. For example, in the MENA region, we are expecting more frequent drought by mid-century under most of the climate change scenarios. In the MENA, our vulnerability to drought is quite different from that of other regions, where the primary concerns are centered largely on issues of water and food security, environmental degradation, and retardation of the development process of the emerging economies in the region. Adaptation is definitely needed in all countries of the region to make the vital systems like food and water less vulnerable to drought. However, the adaptation is costly and can need up to 3% of the region's GDP each year for 10 years, according to IMF. So adaptation and combating vulnerability against drought, for instance, need to be economically wise and based on science. And these are exactly some of the ambitions of IWMI's MENAdrought project. This USAID-funded project worked hand in hand with government officials, policymakers in Morocco, Lebanon, and Jordan to respond to and mitigate drought impacts at the country level. In today's webinar, we will discuss specifically how MENAdrought projects helped governments in the three countries to build their capabilities in forecasting and monitoring drought through early warning systems. Decision makers, such as water management authorities, can prevent harmful drought consequences more efficiently if information is available on time on the occurrence of drought, the potential impacts on the systems, on economy or communities, and also the probabilities for systems failure. Earth observation data science, along with ground truth information, have proven to be extremely useful for looking into the future while considering the uncertainties. We at IWMI believe that data science-based early warning systems can provide important climate change adaptation benefits in the region as part of a comprehensive and proactive drought risk management plans. Thank you for attending the webinar. I will be looking forward to the discussions and conversations around the MENAdrought project. Thank you.
And it was great to hear from Yusuf highlighting that this proactive drought management. The whole point of the three pillars of drought management is that you should be developing your drought planning, you're developing your early warning systems when it's raining. No, we don't want crisis reaction because we know that is not as effective. And so this has been the underlying foundation of all the work we have been doing over those last 7 years. But I think what is critically important is we have to acknowledge that long-term commitment of funding by USAID. I can't thank you enough for that. We couldn't have done it in 2 years or 3 years or 4 years, the usual project cycle. And it is because of that commitment that we have been able to make the strides that we're going to be able to showcase over the next 2 seminars. And it's my deep honor to welcome Ms. Anne Vaughan, who is the Senior Advisor for Climate Change Adaptation in USAID's Bureau for Resilience and Food Security, and also co-lead the implementation of the President's Emergency Plan for Adaptation and Resilience. And it's such a pleasure. And thank you for joining us so early in the morning. The floor is yours.
Oh, great. Thanks so much, Dr. McDonald. It's a real pleasure to be with you and everyone here today. I know we're all very excited to hear from our speakers today and learn more about building climate resilience in the MENA region through drought risk management. This topic couldn't be more important, as we've just heard from experts are predicting that conditions are becoming drier and hotter across the Middle East and North Africa as climate change progresses. As just one example of the impacts, if preemptive action is not taken, crop yields from rain-fed farming could decrease by 30 to 50% in the future, with obvious devastating impacts on food security. Now, the Biden administration, including our teams across USAID, are taking the science behind these predictions seriously and are working to respond accordingly. This decade, we know it'll be decisive for the future of our planet, and that's why at USAID, we've developed a new climate strategy that will guide our work through 2030 in a way that is truly different by calling on all corners of USAID to play a part in our whole of agency response. The strategy recognizes that to tackle the climate crisis, we need to confront the most urgent demands of the climate crisis in the here and now and make long-term transformational changes to global systems like agriculture, energy, governance, infrastructure, and health. Addressing the climate crisis requires a more holistic approach to development. Every USAID sector and mission and all of our partners have a role to play as we work on the ground to set the global trajectory towards a more resilient, prosperous, and equitable world with net zero emissions. And as our Administrator Power has said at last year's COP26, our entire agency is a climate agency now. So USAID's efforts are also central to the President's Emergency Plan for Adaptation and Resilience, or in the English acronym PREPARE. President Biden launched PREPARE at COP26 last year, which activated a coordinated whole of government approach and serves as a framework to bring together the diplomatic, development, and technical expertise of the United States to support more than 500 million people in developing countries adapt to and manage the impacts of climate change through locally led development by 2030. Now, PREPARE serves as a cornerstone of the U.S. government response to the increasing impacts of the global climate crisis, and it consists of 3 pillar components: knowledge, plans, and programs, and resources. Now, I'm real excited to hear from you all today, as the work that you've been doing over the last 7 years really fits along both the knowledge and the plans and programs part of PREPARE, where the knowledge component, or this pillar, focus heavily on climate information services and early warning systems, or as we know, that usable knowledge is essential for governments, communities, farmers, and families to adapt to climate change. We're greatly appreciative of the work of the International Water Management Institute, the scientists from the University of Lincoln, Nebraska, Johns Hopkins, and our friends at NASA, and of course, our national partners from Jordan, Lebanon, and Morocco, including the government, research, and civil society groups that have been working tirelessly on developing the satellite and model-based drought early warning system, and importantly, incorporating this information into plans and policies. We're very excited to hear from the wide range of stakeholders who've helped bring drought early warning systems to life. As you've heard today, we'll hear from the technical leads and learn from engineers in the government who operate the systems and how it's helping governments make better decisions in the face of climate change. A deep appreciation, thanks so much to all the stakeholders who've helped make this system a reality. We're looking forward to learning from you today and this Wednesday. And I hope this is a start of a conversation, as we'll want to hear and learn from you about the benefits that you'll see from implementing these new plans and systems. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Ms. Vaughan, and it's so wonderful to hear the commitment to climate change adaptation and resilience building by the US government. So thank you very much for joining us early in the morning, and we've really appreciated your thoughts in coming to this meeting. So we're now going to look at what are the policy needs for drought early warning systems. And to address that, we welcome a pre-recorded message from Engineer Ali Ghanem, who is the Director of Drought Management Unit, Minister of Water and Irrigation, Jordan. And as Karen's alluding that, please do continue to add your names and where you're from in the chat, because we're so excited to hear from you. Over to you, Karen. And thank you very much, Ali, for your contribution today and being here as part of a panelist.
My name is Ali Ghanem. I am a director of a drought management unit at the Jordanian Ministry of Water and Irrigation and chair of the Drought Technical Committee. I would like to acknowledge the special role of the Jordanian Meteorological Department in development and operation of the drought early warning system. All the agencies involved in the Drought Technical Committee for the hard work, and I would acknowledge USAID and MENAdrought for that. Using the drought monitoring system each month help the ministry and wider government of Jordan to take a risk management approach. The information goes to all the agencies in the Drought Technical Committee. With good information available regularly, we build common understanding and confidence to act early in a targeted way and respond to drought before its impact are too severe. This is critical to achieve the objective of the water sector policy of drought management and the national risk reduction strategy, as well as climate change adaptation goals. Also, it supports interagency collaboration on wider themes around water, food, and energy security, which are increasingly important themes in Jordan economic growth plan. We have established interagency relationship to ensure continuity of the drought monitoring system. Also, we have prevented its effectiveness in monitoring the agricultural production in the wetter area of Jordan, like the highland. This is an excellent start that we wish to build on it in the future. But still, we have been using the system for just 2 years, so we have a lot of scope to refine it. In particular, we want to test and improve its effectiveness in monitoring desert and Badia rangeland area that many Jordanians rely on for their livelihoods. We also want to improve seasonal precipitation forecasting in key hydrological basins so that we have better information to guide the proactive management of water supply and demand and other affected sectors. These are technical, complex issues that are socially, economically, and environmentally important for Jordan, and we would welcome any collaboration to address them.
Thank you, Engineer Ali. And it was great to hear in Jordan, they have a drought policy, which sets up the framework, but also the institutional framework as well for doing that. And Engineer Ali mentioned the Drought Technical Committee. And this is fantastic. It's across a series of ministries that come together and have developed a drought action plan, but have also been co-developing the drought monitoring, checking the drought monitoring, whether it's from the Ministry of Agriculture or Ministry of Environment or Jordan Meteorological Department of Statistics. There's many, and the National Center for Security and Crisis Management. Many different government agencies came together and collaborated in the implementation of both the drought monitoring and the policy. And I think it just shows to show that there are strength and capabilities in that space. So now we're going to take a very technical turn. We're going to look at what's actually in this drought early warning systems. We've heard why it's important. And to do that, we are delighted to have Engineer Karim Bagawi. So he has been developing this with colleagues in Nebraska, but also at NASA. And it's 7 years of his hard work, his team's hard work, that he's going to try and give to us today. So you can all look at where we've got to in terms of the drought early warning systems, the seasonal forecasting and the work. So thank you, Karen, for the video.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for attending this talk on drought monitoring and early warning system. My talk today is a real challenge for me because I have to reflect in 15 minutes the strong efforts of several years of work from many national and international experts led by Nebraska National Drought Mitigation Center from the US to set up in 3 MENA countries, Jordan, Lebanon, and Morocco, a reliable and operational drought monitoring system through an enhanced composite drought index. So I'll try to give you a clear idea about the tools and techniques we used to process the data and the models we used to produce this map of drought, monthly map of drought, without entering too much into the technical details. But you are welcome to send me your questions and comments by the end of this presentation. So my presentation today is primarily on the left-hand side of this slide, which is the technical work, and it focuses on the drought monitor as well as the seasonal forecasting of drought with 4 months lead time. Later today, my colleague Makram will be talking about information generation and the science to policy component in relation to drought triggers. He will also cover some of the information sharing components related to the web interface for the early warning system. Drought is a multidisciplinary problem because when it occurs, it will alter the water cycle, which involves several boundary layer processes from precipitation to surface runoff and filtration to the groundwater. The ability of the vegetation to extract water from the roots and restitute it back to the atmosphere through actual evapotranspiration, then condensation and precipitation, so on. And usually, each of these processes is the mandate of one ministry or institution in the country. So in this project, we try to reproduce the successful experience of Nebraska, of the National Drought Mitigation Center in the US, by involving as much as we can from the ministries that are involved in this, in one or more processes of the water cycle. So we can create a consensus around one index. The index, to have a reliable index, we need reliable data, and the data have to respond to 3 main criteria. It should be accessible at a near real time, because the system that we propose is operational and have to be ready at the beginning of each month. The index should have a good coverage of the whole country, so we can assess the drought extent. And then finally, the data must have a good and long record, homogeneous, so we can assess the intensity of the drought at each location in the country. So our project is not a simple setup of a drought monitor with one model to produce maps at the end of the month. It's the development of an ensemble of models, techniques, data analysis processes to produce a reliable data on drought. I can cite here some of the models we developed, like the land information system with the data assimilation for the root zone soil moisture, some filters to pre-process the vegetation anomalies. We combined in an innovative way a harmonic analysis model with the land information system model to gap fill the cloudy pixels. We used the sliding window to improve the statistical ranking into percentiles. We developed an interactive drought web interface where the user can choose the parameters and analyze them further in each region he wants. We developed deep learning techniques for the seasonal forecasting, and the challenge here is first the setup of all these techniques and models within local servers, where the local engineers can first run them on their own without our help, and on a second stage they will development further for their country. The role of the national stakeholders in our project was very important, and here I want to take the opportunity to thank them all for the big efforts and the strong engagement they showed during all the years of the project. They supported the local installation of the different models I mentioned before under sometimes very difficult operational constraints. They shared not only their ground observations and data to calibrate the model, but also they shared their knowledge of drought impacts in their country to calibrate the drought monitor appropriately. Our hybrid approach for monitoring drought is composed of the 4 components that form the composite drought index. First is the standardized precipitation index from CHIRPS or IMERGE for other countries. The day-night land surface temperature as an approximation of the evaporative stress index from MODIS, and also the vegetation anomaly from MODIS, and then the root zone soil moisture anomaly from the land information system. So we combine these components by affecting weight for each of them. In general, we give 40% to the rainfall and 20% for the remaining components, but according to the climatological zones and the validation from the ground validators in each country, we might change these weights and give more importance, for example, to the vegetation anomaly and the evapotranspiration, for example. It depends on the region and the agroclimatological. And we had a great network of validators in Morocco, for example, with 37 regional validators who receive the map each month, and they assess its accuracy according to what they observe on the ground on their region of intervention. We did also some surveys and validation in Jordan, where we met with high-level officials, medium-level decision makers, and many farmers to assess the drought maps and come back with recommendation for the weighting and the calibration of the map. So we combine the 4 components into one composite drought index, and then we rank it into percentiles. So if we are below 10 to 20%, then we are in a class 1 drought, moderate drought. Between 2 and 10, severe drought. And then below 2%, we are under an exceptional drought conditions, which occurs once per 50 years. And we end up with this kind of map. So the map is produced at the following week of the month, on the 7th or 8th. And it has the information at 5 kilometer resolution for the whole country. It was obvious during the last years of the project that all the stakeholders need not only to monitor drought, but need to predict it and to have a seasonal forecast of drought that ranges from 1 to 4 months. However, to do that, we need to have a good prediction of rainfall, and all the existing dynamical models have a very low predictability of rainfall when the forecast exceeds 1 month. We assessed several models from North America, from European Center, Meteo France, Canada, etc. And all the models have a very low scales of prediction for the rainfall and very low horizontal resolution, 100 kilometers. So what we did here in the project, we developed a convolutional neural network, deep learning model based on the TensorFlow library of Google. And we changed the code of this convolutional neural network by rewriting the loss function using a regionalization technique. And then we train our artificial intelligence model during 35 years of prediction of rainfall from the global models by comparing these forecasts with the observation from chirps at 5 kilometer resolution. And we end up by correcting these forecasts. Of course, as predictors, we use all the dynamical models, four dynamical models, or 5 dynamical models, and the sea surface temperature of the last month. Then we assessed our forecast during an independent test period from 2015 to 2022. And here, if we look at the correlation of the forecasts of the different models to the observations with 1 to 4 months forecast, we can see that the convolutional neural network is much better than all the models. So here in these graphs, in 4 regions in Morocco, we look at the x-axis is the lead time. Lead 0 is 1 month forecast, lead 1 is 2 months forecast, etc. until 4 months forecast. The orange curve is the convolutional neural network. The others are all the other models. And we see that our correlation is steady for all the leads, and it's better than all the models. Also, the root mean square error, I don't show it here, is much smaller than all the other models. So with the convolutional neural network, we obtain a very correlated forecast to the observations with much less errors. We had similar good results for Jordan. However, for Lebanon, the forecast was much more challenging, and we didn't succeed to have very good predictors, and we improve all the dynamical models, but still the result is not usable for drought forecasting, and it needs more time for improvement. In this slide, I show the ability of the artificial intelligence model to predict the severe event of drought of 2015-2016 in Morocco 4 months ahead. So in the the upper line, we have the standardized precipitation index, the 3-month standardized precipitation index from November 2015 to March 2016, and it shows that the drought started in November, intensified in December, January, and then start to recover in February and March. The line below is the prediction of the 3-month standardized precipitation index at 4 months lead time, which means, for example, in September 2015, we were able to predict the drought of December 2015. So 4 months ahead, we were able to predict the beginning of the drought, but more importantly, the intensification during December and January, and then the recovery during February and then March. So this is a successful example where we were able to predict a drought through the standardized precipitation index, because the convolutional neural network was improving so much the prediction of the rainfall at 4 months lead time. The drought maps and the drought data are now represented in a web interface. An interactive web interface was developed with some tools of analysis to calculate the drought severity and coverage index, where the user can choose 2 different districts and compare the drought over the last years, the last few years from 2000 to 2022, and look at the intensity of the drought. One idea would be to also include the seasonal forecast in this web interface, so the decision maker will have a tool to access all the available information on drought monitoring and on drought forecasting. So I hope you had a clear idea about the system and the different tools we used in our drought monitor. Now it is running over the 3 countries. But I'm using the last month of the project, this month of September, to finalize the setup of the seasonal forecasting and the web interface. Now I'm in Rabat, next week in Jordan, and then I am working remotely with Lebanon. Again, I want to thank all the engineers who showed great engagement during the different capacity building workshops to set up and run the system independently, and I'm sure they will be able to improve the system further in the future. Also, as a final conclusion, we have a successful seasonal forecast system of 4 months over Morocco and Jordan. I wished we have more time to finalize it also for Lebanon. And this is not an impossible mission. We can do it if we find the right predictors for Lebanon. Thank you very much for your attention. Please visit our website menadrought.imi.org/output for more details. And I welcome your questions and comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Karim. And you have highlighted the many different innovations, whether it's cloud filling or sliding windows or just the seasonal forecasting that you and the team have been working on. Karim is going to be directly addressing your questions in the chat, so do keep asking him questions. They're able to then respond to that. To me, Karim highlighted the 4 month ahead prediction. Imagine that. But even you get 3 months and two months ahead, it's much more accurate. So begin to see when the drought is there and how it intensifies. It's really critical to our water managers, to our ministries of agriculture, to our farmers, to so many people involved with food and land security, food and water security, that we're working on. So thank you, Karim, and over to the question and answer to you now to answer some of those questions. I would now like to call on the national experiences of 2 engineers who have been involved with this. As we said, this has been a very interactive one. For many of our speakers today, we have asked them to record videos because we wanted to ensure whether if there's power cuts or internet failures and all of that, their voices could still be heard. So we have a number of videos throughout this session. Many of the speakers are on as panelists are here, but we did want to make sure that everything worked well for us. So we now have 2 videos from the national experiences from those engineers who have been working in the countries differently for that. The first is from engineer Omar Hamadan, who's the director of climatology in the Jordan Meteorological Department. And what I will ask for in this one is, can you turn your computer volume up? It's a little bit low, but the words that engineer Omar has to say are very important. And then we have a second video from engineer Hafida Bououda from the Directorate of Statistics and Strategy from the Moroccan Ministry of Agriculture. So we're looking forward to hearing those 2 videos now, Karen. Thank you.
Hello. I am Omar Hamadin and I am the Director of Climatology at Jordan Meteorological Department and member of the Drought Monitoring Subgroup. My team operates the drought monitoring system. This includes running the models and helping to produce and interpret the information that goes to the Drought Technical Committee. We have an important role producing information each month and ensuring the policy advisors and decision makers understand it well. Learning to operate the drought monitor has strengthened my team's modeling and coding skills. It also been a positive experience for us to work with policy-focused colleagues from other agencies, especially because of our memorandum of understanding and strong relationships with the Ministry of Water and Irrigation. Last year, the drought information that we produced supported decision-making on interventions. So I can already see our work having a positive impact on Jordanians' life. This makes us all very proud, and we want to build on this in the future. First, we will focus on using the existing system operationally, improving the spatial aggregation of the outputs, and continuing to validate the outputs using observation data. We want the drought monitor information to be usable and reliable at various administrative levels and the system to be sustainable for the future. This requires both technical and institutional cooperation and eventually incorporation of observation data into the drought monitor itself. We also want to build capability on seasonal forecasting within our department to help us with various matters such as scenario generation. We know other departments want to integrate seasonal forecasting into their own modeling, such as to predict surface water flows and reservoir storage. We have the team and infrastructure to build this capability and deliver more effectively within our own mandate and support wider government agencies on their core work. Thank you.
Thank you, Engineer Omar. And as he said, last year, the drought monitor was used in managing the drought in Jordan. Karen, for the next video, please.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Hafida Bouaouda et je suis géomaticienne à la direction de la stratégie et des statistiques du ministère de l'Agriculture du Maroc. Dans le cadre du projet MENAdrought, je gère avec mes collègues le système d'alerte précoce de la sécheresse à travers un ensemble d'opérations. Et donc, je télécharge les données de télédétection, j'exécute le modèle LIS, j'effectue l'assurance qualité, ainsi que l'amélioration et le classement des données d'indices individuels. À la fin, j'organise et je visualise ces données, ces informations via le portail web. Et bientôt, j'exploiterai les données du modèle de prévision saisonnière. Lors de ce projet, j'ai appris de nouvelles compétences techniques. J'ai également appris à communiquer et à partager des informations de manière efficace. Cela a permis donc d'établir des relations qui vont nous aider par la suite à améliorer le système, mais aussi à garantir son utilité pour les utilisateurs et les décideurs locaux. Actuellement, en plus du suivi continu du réseau de validation avec les responsables locaux, nous travaillons sur un produit de surveillance de sécheresse dans les zones de parcours, et ceci pour accompagner la mise en œuvre de la politique nationale de suivi de parcours. En plus, nous publions désormais les données de surveillance de sécheresse, ce qui constitue bien sûr un pas important dans la transparence et le partage de l'information au Maroc. Finalement, nous avons pris un excellent départ grâce au projet MENAdrought et nous souhaitons continuer et poursuivre son développement à l'avenir, Inch'Allah. Et merci beaucoup.
Thank you. Merci beaucoup, Engineer Hafida Bouaudi. Really, it was a she was explaining the process and the work in establishing this drought monitoring in Morocco in the Department of Statistics and Strategy. Thank you very much for that warm support for the project and insight on that. We're now going to open this up to a panel discussion, and I'm delighted to bring into the conversation now three key members from Jordan, Morocco, and Lebanon, who have been instrumental and pushing forward through those very difficult days. You heard a little bit earlier from Engineer Ali Ghanem, who's the director of the Drought Monitoring Unit at the Ministry of Water Resources and Irrigation in Jordan. Engineer Mona Faki, we have so relied on your energy and drive. Mona is the Director of Water Resources at the Ministry of Energy and Water water in Lebanon, and then Engineer Faris Yaha, who is the head of statistics at the Directorate of Strategy and Statistics, Ministry of Agriculture, Morocco. They have been with us the 7 years of this project, and I'm delighted that you're able to be with us now for this session. So I'd like to do. First of all, Engineer Mona, could I ask a question for you? What has been your experience of trying to link the technical drought monitoring, we've been hearing about that, into drought action plans? Because we know it's only when there's an action plan and that drought map triggers action, that's when impact on the ground, we can make a difference on the ground. What's been your experience of that, Mona?
Thank you, Rachel. Hello, everybody. I'm Mona Faqih, Director of Water. Actually, in the slide, it is Faqih. I am Faqih, not Faqih. Please correct it in the slide. I would like to thank IWMI for their excellent work. I would like to thank USAID for financing such a very important project. I would like to thank all the experts that have been working in this project. This project is very interesting because it is a very live project. You can feel it. You can actually what they are saying about the climate and drought. You are working in such a subject was very important nowadays in the whole world. So thanks for everything. Actually, regarding the project for Lebanon, unfortunately, the early warning system has not been installed or tested, validated. We are waiting this phase to be implemented so that we can link the early warning system to the action plan, which actually we have worked on, waiting meanwhile to this phase would be implemented. So regarding because the same group who will have worked on the action plan will be working in the drought monitoring. We are looking forward, all the experts from our team, especially that they are, this project has brought together a great team of engineers and managers from different ministries and institutions which are related to the drought. My colleagues from meteorological department, the Civil Aviation Authority, from Ministry of Agriculture, from Lebanese Agriculture Research, from the National Council, from the Beirut establishment. This collaboration together improved our institutional relationships and enriched our understanding to each other experiences. Every entity was putting themselves in the other entity and see how to think. And some experiences, because actually when you work together, you understand the other what they are working on. So this was very important, and let us sit together and try to identify potential solutions.
Thank you.
So we are looking forward to such, so that the complete work would be achieved. Thank you.
Thank you, Mona. And I just saw how active the WhatsApp chat was for the group and everybody from the different ministries. And we hope that electricity and internet will allow us to come and finish off installing the drought warning system and making sure it's operational. These are just some of the challenges that we know that countries such as Lebanon face in this. And we've always appreciated the strong support that we've received there. So turning to you now, Engineer Ali, can you describe your ministries, the Ministry of Water and Resources and Irrigation's relationship with the Meteorological Department to operate the drought early warning systems and the work with the Drought Technical Committee that you have led so well? Engineer Ali.
Okay, thank you, Rich. I would thank everyone to attend this workshop. I would thank all the people who work with us in this project. I hope it will be success and sustain in the future. This is what the main thing for us here in Jordan to sustain the work. It's not only project and it's finished. We hope to work together, especially now we have the technical committee, we have this work. As everyone knows, the drought will affect mainly the water sector, but it will not affect only the water sector. It's mainly affected the agriculture, the environment, the health. So we try to include everyone as a stakeholder to be with us, to work with us hand by hand, to have all these results, to share it on time, to have this proactive. So our stakeholder, it's not only from the water sector, not only the meteorological department. Yes, the main of our stakeholder, it's meteorological department, because we need the technicalities in the meteorological department to produce the monthly map. Now we can produce it here in Jordan. So for the sustainability, now we can use it. We can work on it in the future with our experience in the GMD. And not only the GMD work on it, with the NARC and the Ministry of Agriculture, the people from Ministry of Environment can work on it, can understand the result. Not only, it's not only map. This map, it's easy when you see it, but what's the meaning of this? What's the result? And what we need to produce this map? For the calibration, yes, we use it for 2 years till now. The science is not stopped. Every time we need to calibrate our work. Nobody can make something 100% accurate. Sometimes the real data is not 100% accurate. It's modeling, yeah, but we need to enhance our work in the future to cover, already it's covered all Jordan, but maybe it's success in the northern part more than the southern part, because as a lot of people can know that our precipitation in some area in Jordan, it's very low. So sometimes the modeling or the satellite can give us a product, but we can work on it in the future to be more accurate. I would thank everyone, and we're ready to answer any question, as a technical or as a government here in Jordan. Thank you.
Thank you, Engineer Ali. And as you just stressed, drought isn't just about water or agriculture, it's about environment and all those other ministries that you've mentioned. And it has been so wonderful to see the collaboration and the coming together of the technical expertise in each of those different government agencies as you developed and refined the drought monitor. And yes, we know climate is changing, and we know that what is a drought in that, and those changing conditions need to be continually reflected. So we know having such strong engineers at the Jordan Meteorological Department, JMD, is going to help keep that drought monitor on track. Now I'm going to turn to Faraz, and at the moment you see in that the window there is Kareem busy answering all your questions. So Kareem, do you want to flick the camera around to Faraz now? And I'd like to ask Faraz, one of the things that Kareem highlighted in his talk was that regional networkers across the whole of Morocco. Can you describe this regional network of validators? Because they're the ones who are actually seeing the drought. This regional network you established, and how you work with them to assess the enhanced CDI outputs. Engineer Faraz, it's delighted to welcome you to this.
Merci beaucoup. شكرا جزيلا. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. أود أن أبدأ مداخلتي بالشكر الجزيل للمنظمين هذه الورشة التي ذات أهمية كبيرة في موضوع تتبع آثار الجفاف. كما تعلمون المغرب يعد من الدول المهددة بشدة بالتغيرات المناخية ونقص الماء ونقص المياه، سواء وخاصة منها المتجهة إلى القطاع الفلاحي. ووعيا منها بهذه الخطورة وهذه التحديات الكبيرة، عملت وزارة الفلاحة منذ سنوات على وضع مناهج وأنظمة تمكنها من التتبع الجيد لتطور العوامل المناخية، وخاصة منها الجفاف. بدأنا الاشتغال في أول الأمر على تتبع هذه المؤشرات المناخية في المناطق الزراعية الخاصة بالحبوب، التي تمثل حوالي ثلث المساحة من جملة المساحة المزروعة في المغرب. وبعد النجاح الكبير الذي لاحظناه والتسهيلات التي قامت هذه المعلومات بإفادها إلى المسؤولين ومتخذي القرار، عملنا إلى توسيع هذا نطاق الاشتغال في المناطق الخاصة بالمناطق الرعوية. وفي هذا الأساس جاء التعاون مع ليمي في هذا الإطار لأدابتاسيون لملائمة مؤشر المركب بالجفاف للمناطق الرعوية. في هذا الإطار تم تحديد عدد من الخبراء على المستوى المحلي الذين يتوفرون على الكفاءة اللازمة التي تمكنهم من معاينة الآثار الجفاف لتقييم دقة الخرائط التي يتم إنتاجها مشكورا من طرف خبراء ليمي. في هذا الإطار تم تحديد حوالي 30 خبيرا محليا ذو كفاءة عالية موزعين على مختلف المناطق الرعوية في المغرب، وخاصة في المناطق الجنوبية والمناطق الصحراوية منها. وتم تحديد بدقة المناطق التي سيتم استهدافها بهذا التدقيق، وإعطاء كل خبير منطقة يشتغل فيها على حدة. ولتسهيل هذه العملية قمنا بإنشاء نظام معلوماتي خاص يمكن من نشر الخرائط، النشر الشهري لخرائط المؤشر المركب للجفاف، وكذا تسهيل عملية التقاط المعلومات وآراء الخبراء حول كل خارطة على حدة في نهاية كل شهر. بعد ذلك قمنا بجمع المعلومات التي قمنا بالتحصل عليها وإرسالها إلى خبراء ليمي قصد التحليل والتدقيق في ملائمة هذه الخرائط مع ما هو ملاحظ في عين المكان. والنتائج التي قمنا بالحصول عليها دلت على فعالية هذه الخرائط. نعم، هناك نقائص يمكن تقويمها في النسخ الآتية من هذا النظام، ولكن نحن جد راضون على النتائج التي تم تحقيقها لحد هذه الساعة. شكرا على حسن الإصغاء.
Shukran, Engineer Faris, and thank you so much for adding that there. And hopefully those that were not Arabic speakers, you were able to go to the translation and to hear what Engineer Faris was saying. So thank you very much, the panelists. I know that they are going to stay on. So if you have any questions, please put them into the question and answer. And Engineer Mona, Engineer Ali, Engineer Faris, I'm sure you would help share your experience and your insight, because we know it's that operationalizing it and it's embedding it, it's building that infrastructure around the actual drought early warning system that makes it usable and makes it there, people go there. So we're now going to have more active engagements with you, the audience, and thank you for staying with us. And we're going to respond, we're going to ask you to respond to 2 questions. So I'm going to pass this over to Mo and ask you to start the Mentimeter, Mo.
Great, thank you very much for this engagement. We will now invite you as audience to engage and respond to today's proceedings by answering 2 questions. And you can answer in Arabic, French, or English. And we have a few colleagues stand by who will be able to translate the results that are coming in. In the chat, you will see a link to access Mentimeter. If you click on that link, it will open up a new browser and you can then respond to questions. Or if you have a separate device, a mobile phone or tablet, you can type in menti.com and enter the code 6109184 or use the QR code. The two questions that we are posing to you is, in what ways are the technologies and learnings presented today transferable to other countries? Here we're really looking at transferability. In what ways are the technologies and learnings presented today transferable to other countries? So you will be able to go through that. And we're looking at the results coming in. And the second question is going to look at how you have overcome barriers to institutionalize drought monitoring for government decision making. So let's have a look first at the first results coming in. The text is quite small.
Mo, there are some great responses in there about how absolutely what you will have seen in each of the three countries, we have had to adjust the technologies to and the techniques for rainfall prediction, for example. And Karim was telling you about how we're still trying to work on that rainfall prediction for Lebanon because of the orography, the big mountains that are making it very different. They're talking about the use of capacity building, how they can take it into their own, how it's important to build on existing platforms and institutional frameworks. Absolutely, we did that in every single country. The methodology is very transferable. We know it's transferable, but we then know that you then need to ground it into what's the environment there. It's not just the institution or the natural environment, it's that drought environment. And we were reading just now some of in the chat, it was about, yes, it is pastoralists, it is ranchers, it's farmers, it's many different people who are implemented by drought. There's a really good suggestion there of establishing a MENA consortium. And I think that would be great to be able to bring the experiences of this long investment into drought monitoring and drought action planning here in the MENA region, and being able to transfer that so all countries can have the access to this technology, and that their meteorological departments and their ministries of water and agriculture can take and put that into the right context of that. We welcome all our colleagues there being able to contribute to regional meetings. We know that that might even be through the COP or wherever the success of the web interface is a great way also. That was a really good suggestion because we know that that web interface is important. It means that that drought information, the mapping, is accessible to many people. They did this at the Department of Statistics and Strategy and Statistics in Morocco. And that drought map is now accessible to anybody who's looking at what are the conditions of drought for that system. So we know that these are important. So I think there's some great takeaways there and real engagement in thinking, Mo. And what was the second question?
So the second question is, how have you worked to overcome barriers to institutionalize regular drought monitoring that supports government decision-making?
And yes, so something that we did right from the very beginning, because most of the countries, or all the countries we worked in, already had drought monitoring. And the idea was, what's working with the current drought monitoring? What do you think as a decision maker, as a stakeholder, what's your needs? And that was very important, that early assessment, being able to look at what are the needs, where can we add further value to existing systems, and co-develop those solutions and implementation. And you will see that in each of the 3 countries we're working with, we have different ministries who are running the drought monitoring. In Jordan, it's the Jordan Drought Meteorological Department. In Lebanon, it's the Ministry of Energy and Water. And in Morocco, it's the Ministry of Agriculture, the Department of Strategy and Statistics. So it's looking at capacities, capabilities in each country for doing that there. Then there's a good one, capacity development in DRR. We know that's needed across the region, across Africa. That I'm sure it's going to be a critical part of the COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt. And that cross-sectoral collaboration for preparedness, it's hard when each institution has it, but showing that you can be this drought technical committee that Engineer Ali was telling us about, Mona was telling us about, and Engineer Faris has. Those cross-ministerial committees, it is wonderful the way they work together on all of this. Mo, I think because of time, we do need to keep pushing forward. So I welcome us moving to the next session. And this is where we're going to really take quite a sharp turn. We've been looking at technology, and now we're going to look at this science to policy interface. And we're first of all going to ask, we're going to have a video from Engineer Faris. Now, Engineer Faris is going to speak in French. His English text will be put into the chat, and I will summarize at the end what was Engineer Faris said. So we really welcome hearing from Engineer Faris. Thank you, Karen.
Bonjour tout le monde, je m'appelle Faris Yahya et je travaille à la direction de la stratégie et des statistiques au niveau du département de l'agriculture. Grâce à notre partenariat fructueux avec l'EMI sur le système de suivi de la sécheresse, nous avons appris comment le partage des informations entre les agences gouvernementales et les institutions de recherche et les universités pouvant être d'une utilité dans la planification stratégique dans le secteur agricole. Auparavant, il y avait un besoin énorme pour ce type d'informations sur la surveillance de la sécheresse. Désormais, en disposant de cette information de façon continue, et nous le partageons avec de nombreux utilisateurs. Ainsi, le processus de la validation de ces données au niveau des départements d'agriculture en se basant sur les expériences et les connaissances locales nous a permis une calibration de notre modèle à la fois pour les zones céréalières et les zones de parcours. Le système d'alerte précoce est essentiel pour nous aider à mettre en œuvre la loi nationale sur les parcours. Nous avons testé sa capacité à surveiller les effets de la sécheresse sur les terres de parcours. Cela s'avère relativement efficace et nous avons identifié quelques étapes simples pour améliorer les résultats obtenus. Ceci, combiné aux prévisions saisonnières de précipitations, sera très utile pour nous aider de la remplir de notre fonction liée à la planification stratégique et l'élaboration de la politique au niveau des secteurs agricoles. Mais nous avons encore de nombreuses possibilités d'améliorer la gestion des risques de la sécheresse. Nous espérons intégrer plusieurs systèmes et techniques existants en développement de nouveau afin de pouvoir produire des informations solides et très simples à comprendre par les utilisateurs. Nous voudrons lier les données provenant de la cartographie des types de cultures et les prévisions saisonnières de pluviométrie pour renforcer notre système de prévision des récoltes pour les principales céréalières. Et nous voudrons également relier les prévisions saisonnières au modèle hydrologique pour promouvoir les apports dans les principales bassins de production. Cette information nous aidera de façon très efficace dans la planification technique et financière de notre projet de développement. Et je vous remercie pour votre attention.
Thank you, Engineer Faris. And if you allow me, I'm just going to summarize a little bit of what Engineer Faris was saying. He was just saying that it was through the development and operation of the drought monitoring systems, we learned how sharing information and strong partnerships between central government agencies and the local government and academia can improve the quality of information. So it's just by that data sharing, and that there was this unmet demand, but by those agencies coming together, it was important. He emphasized how this early warning system was really important to Morocco to implement the national rangelands law. We know in all three countries that we're working in, rangelands, the pastoralist, this is an area that drought impacts greatly. And we know that in Morocco, the national rangelands law, it needs a monitor to help put it into effect. And we're glad that this is going to be using. And I always thrilled working with science researchers such as Engineer Faris and Kareem and the team and the Jordanians and in Lebanon. There's always new ways to take this forward. And he's talking about that they want to link the data to crop type mapping and crop growth modeling, so we can very much link it to food security, and to seasonal forecasting to water hydrological models, so they can predict inflows to major reservoirs, which we know are critical in Morocco. So thank you very much for that, Engineer Faris. Now we're going to have a little bit more of a technical session. This is looking at, we've seen those drought maps, but they need to be able to trigger actions. Engineer Mona, Engineer Ali have talked about those drought action plans. So when does a drought map trigger it? And we now hear from Dr. Makram Balhaj-Fraj from IWMI, who's going to tell us about the steps taken involved to link what we know from past impacts of droughts as triggers to then making that impact. Karen, could you play the video, please?
Hi, good morning. My name is Makram Balhaj-Fraj, agriculture and vulnerability expert working on the USAID-funded MENAdrought project led by IWMI. In this presentation, I will be discussing with you the use of drought monitor outputs for triggering response actions. This work was done in collaboration with stakeholders in Jordan, Lebanon, and Morocco. Drought is a multifaceted natural hazard that impacts most of the societies with agricultural, hydrological, social, and economic implications. Therefore, drought management requires a participatory and integrative research for development efforts that targets the diffusion of the IDMP norm at different decision-making levels. MENAdrought supported the creation of multidisciplinary and multi-institutional drought technical committees and national drought management committees in the MENA countries. These entities own the operational drought monitoring and early warning system and the drought action plans. The use of quantitative data allows significantly reducing political challenges and depoliticizing decisions as much as possible. During a single season, drought can come as a short event for a few weeks to few months, or can be prolonged as a wave over consecutive dry years with the most intense impacts. There are 6 types of drought in the MENA region. We are showing here an example for Lebanon with a simplified series of maps from December to May. A creeping drought like in 2014 is a continuous dry condition that starts early in the wet season and extends to the spring with the continuous increase in drought classes incidence. An early drought like in 2007 is the start of drought conditions in the autumn or winter. However, the following spring season is under normal conditions. A mid-season drought like in 2002 occurs during the February-March period. A late onset drought like in 2004 occurs during late spring. An intercepted drought like in 2016 is a type that shows high intermonth variability. A flash drought like in 2010 comes at critical crop growth stages for a few weeks within a given season. The dynamics of each drought event should be monitored closely to anticipate impacts and to also identify the start of the recovery phase to engage related post-drought interventions. Throughout a season, decisions need to be consistent and not oscillating from one month to another. Relationship between drought features, secondary statistics, or qualitative perceptions are used to deduce thresholds for interventions or triggers. Triggers correspond to values of drought severity and extent that leads to inevitable impacts due to a water deficit condition. The upper left plot shows an example of retrospective analysis of past drought impacts on the Moroccan cereal production. The average percent to potential cereal production in Morocco, shown by the curve in black color, is correlated with the weighted ECDI over provinces pixel values for the past 20 years, as shown in the curve in red color. The trigger here corresponds to a weighted CDI value of 0.36, as shown by the red arrow. It is applicable in most of the agroecological zones for rain-fed cereals and for rangelands. These triggers allow the identification of pastoral areas at risk of degradation for adjusting transhumance management. It could be used to direct bank funds to priority hotspots, like for the Crédit Agricole du Maroc, as well as for defining insurance payouts, like by MAMDA. In case of lack of quantitative data, we can use qualitative methods as shown in the upper right figure, with an example of survey involving collecting perceptions like from the actual rangelands drought impact reporting network in Morocco that is overseeing 2 million hectares, or the rapid drought impact condition survey in the governorate of Tafila in Jordan. In northern Jordan, the production of rain-fed staple crops includes cereals, olives, and legume grains. The time series of production is compared to the frequency of drought classes in northwest highlands, including northern Jordan Valley, Azraq, and Amman al-Zarqa basins. This figure shows the anomaly of aggregated production of all rain-fed staple crops in Irbid, Ajloun, Jarash, Balqa, and Madaba. Dry seasons are characterized by either initial stresses in winter or the terminal stresses in spring. Winter stresses are more impacting than spring stresses. For example, for the driest years of the series, the production anomaly of the 2001 creeping drought is higher than the 2008 late onset drought. In contrast, the wet years of 2002, 2010, 2012, and 2015 show positive crop production anomalies in northwest Jordan. By checking all the time series of monthly ECDI maps, we deduced that 2 dry months out of 3 in a given season correspond systematically at 100% of the cases to a negative production anomaly. In winter, this consists of 1 moderate and 1 severe dry month during the period of December-February. In spring, this consists of at least 2 severe months during the period of March to May. Therefore, the triggers are 2 months of moderate and severe drought during the period of December to February, or 2 months of severe to exceptional drought during the period of March to May. For the case of Lebanon, there are no continuous records or secondary statistics. We can either use the Jordanian triggers or rely on statistics of the drought severity and coverage index. The plot on the left side shows the series of monthly ECDI maps from September to May for the past 21 years. The plot on the right shows the rainy season cumulative drought severity and coverage index, first for the period of September to May, and then for the full season for key Lebanese regions. Both series are highly correlated, and the trigger corresponds to a cumulative value of DSCI that equals the score of 533. This corresponds to 30% of the maximum recorded cumulative DSCI. This means that when this value is reached, actions can be taken to respond to drought, whether it is during autumn, winter, or spring. We are delivering web interfaces for the stakeholders in the 3 countries so they can fine-tune the triggers. There is a room for future interdisciplinary investigations and inputs from regional reporters' networks that could support fine-tuning triggers for sector-based interventions. This could take into account also differences between counties, localities, regions, and agroecological zones. Drought typology and triggers are feeding drought progression bulletins produced by the drought technical committees in the 3 countries. The determination of triggers for agricultural drought was initiated by IWMI, and it is recommended that it evolves with feedback from networks of drought reporters. The multidisciplinary and inter-institutional collaboration made by the DTC members enabled indeed delivering quality drought progression bulletins. At the end of this presentation, I would like to highlight the important efforts made by the national stakeholders. Thank you for all your great work. Thank you all for your attention.
Thank you, Makram, and thank you that highlighting just that drought is so complex, creeping or flash or whatever it is. Each of them brings such very difficult impacts to farmers or pastoralists or water managers or people living in cities, or it comes out in the environment, which is often forgotten. But the impacts there are as great as they are in any other area. So we're now coming towards the end of our webinar. This is the first webinar and in a 2-webinar series. So the second webinar will be on Wednesday, and this is where we very much focus on impact and, more importantly, action plans and policies. So today we focused on what is involved with being able to predict using satellite imagery and modeling and all sorts of complex inputs, where the drought is and the severity of the drought, but also being able to predict that drought going forward. And we've talked about how it's been important to embed the drought into the system. So it's very much looking at what do we need to do. And I think you will have heard many, many times it's about collaboration of both technical experts, internationally, regionally, locally, but also then bringing in the understanding of people on the ground as to what that drought is. So as I said, on Wednesday, let's come back together and let's hear about those drought action plans. This is really innovative. So few people in the world, few countries in the world have those drought action plans, and to have them operationalized and embedded in each of those 3 countries is really important. And there's lots that we can share in the experiences of that from our engineers, that helps to go across that science to policy interface. I'm just going to take a minute to thank so many people there. Thank you to our speakers for today, for joining us, for sharing their experiences of what it's taken to get so far. I'd like to thank the MENAdrought team for being on standby and answering your questions. They will continue to answer your questions and respond to some really good points that you've made. And these are ones we think about all the time that we're wanting to do. I want to thank USAID for being here today, both USAID, the Middle East Bureau, but also the different missions. I'm seeing your participation. Thank you for being there, and we welcome sharing this information, looking at how you can then take this further forward. But I also want to thank you all for joining us today. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being so active. I've loved watching all the questions coming in to know where you're from, and we will continue to work on this again on Wednesday. So see you back here on Wednesday. Thank you very, very much for your time, for everybody, and we are looking forward to continuing the conversation. Thank you and stay safe. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.